What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Breakdown Podcast. Nick Farabaugh here as usual. Welcome to a beautiful Wednesday here in Pittsburgh, 84 degrees and sunny. Steelers preparing for their game in Denver this week. Check out Steelers Rewind earlier. We talked a little bit about where things stand. I'll give you guys a quick recap of that. Russell Wilson today was limited. Justin Fields took the first team reps, and that was expected, obviously. Very expected that we would see Justin Fields take those first team reps. Troy Fautano was at right tackle. Broderick Jones was at left tackle with Dan Moore Jr. out for this practice with an ankle injury. Does not mean Dan Moore Jr. is necessarily going to be out this game. He was wearing a brace on his right ankle today when I saw him in the locker room. So we'll see kind of where he goes from here. But he's a little banged up. Does not mean he's necessarily out or ruled out, though. And I thought actually he played a pretty good game when you watch the tape back from Sunday's game against the Falcons. Roman Wilson ran routes for the first time today. So he is looking much better. And then, to round out the injury report, you had Darius Rush, who was living with the concussion. Good news for him. He seems like he's going to be on the way back. And then you had Larry Ogunjobi pop up limited with a knee injury. The fact that he is limited and he is a veteran on a Wednesday means that knee injury is probably not very significant, and they are just trying to kind of load manage it. So that's kind of the injury rundown, and that's kind of the news that I wanted to cover. So let's cover a few topics today. First of all, let's talk about the quarterback situation. We talked about a little bit about that yesterday, but I don't necessarily want to talk about who should start, controversy, whatever. We kind of hit on that yesterday. What I want to hit on is Justin Fields is preparing to be the starter this week. Can they build upon what they had last week with him? And he didn't turn the ball over. They did a lot of rollouts. I think Arthur Smith called a good game in terms of calling these rollouts with Justin Fields. You look at what he did with the rollouts versus without the rollouts, man. He was awesome on those rollouts. I think he had something like, if you are a big fan of like EPA per play, I think the EPA per play on those rollouts was 0.15. And I think if on non-rollout pass plays, I think it was like negative 0.16 or something. So pretty stark difference in those. And it makes sense. Justin Fields is not somebody that targets the middle of the field a ton. He has the arm strength to do it, but he doesn't really throw, with the anticipation to do it there. And so they really made him comfortable rolling him out using his mobility. That way he can use his legs. He's great throwing on the run, so he can really get torque. You saw him flip his hips and get his hips around and be able to make some really nice throws, right? For example, that play with George Pickens before the half. I remember the nice throw to Michael Pruitt on a similar play there. So you could see him do a lot of really good things on the move there. So getting him on the bootlegs are really good. But is this sustainable? Can you run so many bootlegs there? I think you can do a degree. I think you can build it. You can move the launch points. You can run a heavy QB run game. Now they're gonna have to mix it up. They're gonna have to do different looks. They're gonna have to do different plays. They're gonna have to probably go, into more formational diversity. I think, you maybe you'll see a little more pistol. And I would also like to see personally them try to develop a quick game outside of the rollouts. Now, I know Justin Fields has never really been great at quick game, right? Because he's a see it throw it guy, and when you're a see it throw it guy, getting guys on the move, on rollouts or these deep balls to George Pickens and having that alpha guy you trust is obviously huge for a guy like Fields. But I would like to see them develop a quick game, and I would like to see them develop an alpha guy there. I would like that alpha guy to be Pat Freiermuth. I think you can really go up against guys. These Broncos safeties are solid. They're not elite though. They are a solid group, but I think Pat Freiermuth is going to have chances here to win, and so I would like to see them get Pat Freiermuth involved. I also think Roman Wilson, if he can play this week, could be a really nice threat in that area. Running crossers, getting him free releases. So I think that's something that I would like to see. I would like to see the diversity of the formation switch up a little bit, and I would like to see them switch up some of the personnel a little bit. I would like to see Ronick there and more early down scenarios so they can run the ball a little better. Van Jefferson's not the greatest blocker in the world. I would like to see them use George Pickens in the slot a little more. I would like to see them use Pat Freiermuth a little more, and then what they did. So, I think there are some personnel groupings to get figured out as well. But I do think they can do some fun things. If they can develop just a little bit of quick game. It doesn't even need to be, extensive. It just needs to be something that they can really go. And I would use, bunch that stacks and try to really get the open guys working. They did that really well, I think, and the few times they try to do that against the Falcons. And so I would like to see that kind of develop. So that's something I want to see, with Fields in there. With Russ, if it becomes clear Russ is starting, we'll talk about that later and kind of what I would do with Russ versus Fields. But I think we kind of have a nice blueprint here of what they should do with Justin Fields. So let's talk then about the Broncos, what they kind of bring to the table. They're a different type of team than the Steelers faced last week. You go down to the splits that the Steelers faced last week against the Falcons. The Falcons really played in two personnel groupings. They played in a ton of 11, and they had some 12 personnel mixed in there. The Broncos are going to do a lot of different things. They're going to play at 11. They're going to play out of 12. They're going to play out of 13. They might have a fullback, so they might play out of 21 or 22. So they're gonna mix up the looks a lot. They'll go to I formation. They'll go under center. They'll go pistol. They'll go shotgun. They'll do a lot of different things, and they'll rotate a lot of guys in too. But they are a completely different offense, but also similar in some ways. And the ways they are different is Bo Nix is obviously a hugely he's an athletic quarterback. So you're gonna get him on the move. He didn't have that component last week with Kirk Cousins. The Falcons were trying to protect Kirk with the Achilles. And as a result of that, you didn't really have to worry about him going under center and doing play action. I think, you could even tell by pistol. Like, I think they ran out of pistol 81% of the time. Had no play action, honestly, so you didn't have to worry about the threat. So you could start to cheat down. I saw Patrick Queen cheating down to the B gap. I saw TJ Watt flying upfield. So you can't do as much anymore when you have guys like Bo Nix because he might bootleg right around you and hit the guy in the flat, or it might be a design QB run. So the edge rushers and the D linemen can't just, swarm upfield as they could against the Falcons. So things are going to be a little different there. There's going to be some discipline. I think that they're going to have to face, and so we'll see kind of how that works. They're going to change Bo Nix's launch points. Bo Nix can also run out of structure, so you have to be really disciplined in your rush lanes. You can't let him kind of step up and go because he can run. He can move, man. Like Bo Nix is a really good athletic quarterback in terms of how he runs. You look at the touchdown he even had, man, that was pretty crafty. He had like a little spin move and flew into the end zone. He did not play well though. The quarterback game, run game, I feel like is going to be something bigger this week. Trying to get misdirection going, maybe take that aggressiveness of guys like TJ Watt and Patrick Queen and use it against them. I could see Sean Payton liking that part of the exchange, even though they didn't do a ton of it in week one. But here's the really interesting thing to me about this is, Kirk Cousins didn't really want to hold on to the ball very long, so it was a lot of quick game stuff, underneath stuff. But the thing is, that is also what Bo Nix does. Now they changed the launch points, right? So it can be a little different. You can run, sprint outs and PA rollouts and hit them in the flat. And so you have some other things to worry about in that regard. But you also have the same things. You still got tackle in space. You're going to see, bubble screens. You're going to see drag routes. The whole concept of a Sean Payton offense is essentially to get one-on-one matchups and try to win in man. Are the Steelers going to play a ton of man? I think they'll play enough of it. I think because I think they're going to trust their guys to match up against it. I don't think there's a great receiving core. I think the weapons are great either. Especially some of the injuries that they have. I mean, Devon Vele and Josh Reynolds are both banged up right now. We'll kind of see what happens there. But that's interesting. I do think it's going to be interesting to see how a guy like Dante Jackson faces Vele and Reynolds. They're just bigger, more physical guys than he faced. Now he had some reps against Drake London and he did well. So that's cool, and you like to see that, but it's different stylistically. And so it's just a completely like different vibe shift from what they faced against the Falcons. I don't, particularly love this offense for the Broncos. I love Sean Payton's play calling ability, but I mean, there's a lot left to be desired to me on this tape that I watched. Of against the Seahawks. Defense for the Broncos, I think, is pretty underrated. I think people are sleeping on it. I know, that you look at the names and they aren't super flashy outside of Surtain, of course. Surtain, in my opinion, the best corner in football. So that'll be appointment viewing. Him versus, um, when you look at him specifically versus George Pickens. That'll be a fun match. I'm like really looking forward to that matchup actually, because I really do think that he versus George Pickens could be a really, really cool one. And this is why I also am talking about the quick game so much with Justin Fields. I think you want to see Pat Freiermuth become a focal point just because, do you really want to, I know you trust George as your guy, but also do you want to be overly testing Surtain? I don't know if you want to do that. So we'll kind of see what they come in. They'll probably get their shots off to Pickens if they can get him into the slot. If they can try and get him free releases and get him up against other guys too, I think they should do that. But I think Freiermuth should be a really big part of this team in this game. And so there's a lot to look at there. It's a really underrated edge group. I really like Nick Bonito. I really like Baron Browning. Jonathan Cooper's a really strong player at the point of attack. Good run defender. They have some nice interior line depth. Zach Allen is a nice player. So it's a solid front. And so I think this is a solid defense. Riley Moss, I know he allowed a few big catches to Tyler Lockett, but he was in good coverage on most of those plays too. So they have some nice players here on this defense. I think it's pretty underrated. I think people are kind of sleeping on that. And I think the Steelers, I think it's an easier defense to face than they did against Atlanta. But I also think that people might think that this defense is complete trash, and it's not. It's a pretty solid one. So keep an eye out for that. Steelers are obviously going to try and run the ball a ton, but I also think they're going to need some more quick game in this one. And I think in more diverse sources than they did against the Falcons. So we'll kind of see how all of that comes about. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Steelers Breakdown podcast today. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn the notification bell. If you are watching this on YouTube, make sure to leave a review. If you are listening to this on a podcasting platform, make sure to subscribe to the subtext down below in the description. You get exclusive analysis and news from yours truly if you do that. Thanks for watching, everybody. Be back tomorrow.